On May 13, 2005, the city of Andijan, Uzbekistan, awoke to an armed uprising and a large anti-government protest on the city's main square. The gunmen, many of whom had escaped from prison when the chaos began the night before, took state officials hostage at gunpoint. Cars were burned to hulks. Theaters were set afire and burned. This footage was made by at least 2 amateur cameramen, and their fragmentary work was then found and edited by the Uzbek government for use in prosecutions. The New York Times obtained this video from the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. It provides a fresh, gripping, but limited view into the events that human rights groups say soon ended in a massacre in Uzbekistan, a repressive post-Soviet nation in Central Asia bordering Afghanistan. Uzbekistan has long been criticized in the West, but Western leaders, including President Bush, had intensely engaged with Uzbek President Islam Karimov after September 11, 2001, hoping to reform it gradually while enlisting it as a partner in counterterrorism operations. Fallout from the violence last May has changed that course. First, Mr. Karimov refused to allow a credible independent investigation. Then, Uzbekistan blamed the United States for underwriting what it calls Islamic terrorists who started the uprising. The United States has dismissed that charge as absurd, but has been evicted from an airbase it had used since 2001. The European Union, meanwhile, has blocked several Uzbek officials from entering its 25 member states. Survivors who say this footage is authentic insist that the uprising was spontaneous, driven not by militant Islam, but by a beleaguered population frustrated with the nation's corruption, brutality, and intolerance of free worship of Islam. The unrest was tied to the trials of 23 businessmen the Uzbek government accused of extremism, but who survivors describe as religious, community-oriented men who defied official shakedowns, like this man seen here in black. Their supporters said the trial was rigged, and on the night of May 12th, as the trial was ending, a group of gunmen attacked a police garrison, seized weapons, and then raided the prison, freeing the 23 businessmen and hundreds of other inmates. This video captured some of the disorder the next morning. Many of the armed men, of whom about 40 appear, are seen committing serious crimes. Here, some are seen mixing Molotov cocktails. Others are forcing state hostages, like this policeman in green, into the seized government building, topped by a sniper team. What the crowd seeks is a matter of dispute. On the square there are scattered calls of Allahu Akbar, which Uzbekistan says is evidence that the event was launched by terrorists seeking to create an Islamic state. At other moments, the crowd chants Azadlik, or freedom. The survivors said the uprising sought only political change. In places the video can be read either way. This escaped inmate, holding an assault rifle, who was jailed for killing a man with a fork, addresses the crowd, alternately speaking of a willingness to die and urging restraint. The demonstrators' poor judgment is evident at many times. The woman beside him, for example, is an escaped drug dealer. At one point, an intoxicated man is also on the stage, speaking almost incoherently, raising questions about the demonstrators' degree of organization. For all of its chaos, the tape also shows that the demonstrators were mainly unarmed, and suggests they had little ammunition and were lightly equipped. In a few places, the speeches call for calm. There are also scenes of the unarmed demonstrators trying to organize into human rows, a tactic seen at peaceful revolutions in other former Soviet states. One prominent speaker tells people to stand up so that their children will be proud. The state is us. It is the people, he said. A voice cheers him on. You are right. Many in the crowd were soon to die. Their defiance ended that evening, survivors said, when Uzbek troops moved into the city center and cleared the streets by gunfire. Survivors say at least hundreds died. Uzbek leaders insist the death toll is 189. Survivors and human rights groups reject the Uzbek claim and say a campaign of repression and whitewash has followed, with mass arrests, incarcerations, and rigged trials. The events of Andijan are all but certain to remain grounds for argument. This footage, for all of the insights it offers, may be remembered, survivors said, for what it does not show, the violence at the end. For the New York Times, this is C.J. Chivers.